The basis dropped on a new edition of Soccer Down here. It's March 4th. It's a Wednesday, which means it is a Wall Pass Wednesday. What that means, if you're new to the show, you ask questions, we provide answers. If we don't have answers, we usually make something up. If we can't come up with anything quick enough, then we just play drops until we figure something out. How about that? Does that sound like a plan?
Sounds good to me.
All right, cool. Well, we're going to do that this morning. We're also going to talk about Victor Wanyama, headed to Montreal Impact. Hopefully his body parts can all function, because that's a little bit of an issue for Wanyama, and still a big addition for the Impact as they continue to surprise us. It seems like every day since Thierry Henry has taken over, there's been a little bit of a surprise out of Montreal. It's going to be an interesting year to follow the Impact. Also, some announcements on the TV side around the league. The Chicago Fire are making some big surprises as well with their TV crew. Some big additions there. So, lots of things to talk about this morning, but I believe John has a Wall Pass Wednesday question to start things off, and I'm a little afraid.
He does. So, and this goes back to a discussion that you and I were having last night.
Oh,
and
no.
It's a spin-off of that. So it's not quite that, but it got me thinking. But last night, and this goes also back to time on the road in the past, where when we would go to Nashville for an event or anything like that, I would always say, and I've said on the show, that one of the places that I will stop is at a White Castle in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. It was right off of the exit. It was a gas station White Castle, which meant that it was extra. Yeah, I know.
Closed.
But I know. But normally, when you go to a gas station version of a restaurant that's attached, you know that the food is really greasy, and it's almost the extreme part of the bell curve for that particular restaurant. But the White Castle in Murfreesboro was closed. So on the way home from the Nashville SC match, Jason and I stop in Nashville, and we did encourage Mitch Northam of Pro Soccer USA to do the same. And we stop at the White Castle, get lunch on the way home, and take it back. And I think it lasted the sum total of about 2 exits before it was done. So last night, we're coming home from the Soccer Down here, SDH Network's High School Game of the Week with Roswell and Parkview. And thanks to both schools who were tremendous in helping us get acquainted with everybody. And it was a split for the schools in those 2 particular matches. Next week will be at North Springs and Riverwood, by the way. But we stop at another restaurant that is of the same ilk of White Castle. And we got a deal, and we were eating those burgers as well.
Why are you refusing to say their name? What is up with this?
I was building up to Crystal, sir.
All right. I mean, there's only really one other restaurant of that ilk, so it's not a surprise.
No. So we stop at Crystal, get one of their deals, and that lasted about 2 exits. And the key there with Crystal, as everybody knows, is that you got to eat it hot, because the second it starts to lose its the heat, the constitution's gone, and all that. And so we get into a discussion, Jason and I did, about which one was better, White Castle or Crystal. And I said that each is valuable in their own geographic area, that, you know, folks in the South are going to gravitate toward Crystal, folks in the North are going to gravitate toward White Castle. But I gave White Castle credit for having crinkle fries as opposed to the normal fries. My Wall Pass Wednesday question of the morning: we all have food takes. Mine are awful. We know this. What fast food restaurant or what restaurant do you gravitate toward that everybody else thinks you're crazy for doing so? You're on an island for a particular restaurant. What's that restaurant? Everybody else thinks you're crazy for doing this in comparison to others. What's that one restaurant that you've got to go to that everybody looks at you and goes, dude, you're out of your mind?
Okay. What is it for you?
Well, for me, gosh, I mean, I don't have I can go to any fast food restaurant, but I mean, the White Castle discussion for me, it's like when I'm out of Crystal Range and I go to White Castle, everybody still thinks that because I go to White Castle, I'm nuts.
Who thinks that?
I mean, everybody that I talk to that is like, why you go to White Castle? It's got to be Crystal.
Who? But there's no Crystal there.
That's the thing. It's like that's the issue. It's like just because I'm out of Crystal Range, you go to White Castle. Who are my friends?
I don't know. I'm asking.
It's like family make these same things too. It's like, you're out of Crystal Range and you want to go someplace else. And they're like, well, no, that's like going to Crystal. And I'm like, no, it's different.
It is different. I will go ahead and make a bold statement on the show this morning and say that Crystal's better than White Castle. Go ahead at me. It's all good.
That's not necessarily bold, though.
No, it is to a lot of people, because I think last time I even insinuated it, people started yelling at me. So go ahead. It's all good. And it's not to say like they're bad. I just prefer Crystal a little bit more.
Yeah, it's just different. It's like,
it's
just because
different. Let's be real.
Well, I mean,
it's not that different.
Well, and then for me, I think that White Castles are saltier than Crystal, and that really is saying something. I mean, for me, I can go to Whataburger if I'm in South Georgia, and people sit there and it's like, A, what's a Whataburger? And B, why do you go there? It's like, well, it's Whataburger. It's different than everything else. It's, just because we're surrounded by all these restaurants here at SDH HQ doesn't mean when I'm not out of the geographic footprint that I'm not going to go and sample Whataburger because, they have like the sauce on their burger that's kind of Big Mac-ish.
I'm just confused by the premise. I mean, I know you have some questionable food takes, and people should question these, but this part doesn't seem like it's all that questionable. You're going to establishments in the town that you are in, and they don't have other establishments. So
it's like you're a traitor for going to these similar restaurants instead of sticking to the footprint that you're in.
I don't understand.
React to me. Is this thing on?
I don't
Apparently
understand.
not.
I do not understand this premise.
It's like you're being a traitor for sampling things that are outside the footprint.
So you just don't eat when you you're not supposed to eat.
The Benedict Arnold of food. That's me.
No, there's other things you are of food. I'm not going to go Benedict Arnold.
Like what?
I'm going to have to think about it.
But I know that my choices are very one-dimensional, and that's just, I mean, I'm that guy who is set in his ways. I'm crotchety old guy, and it's like, all right, this is what I'm going to do. And I know that it took you kicking and screaming and scheduling a meeting at Las Brasas to get me in there to eat Las Brasas, and now I can't, and I will get the Haufa all day long because the sauce. Okay, I was close. Fine, chaufa. But the chaufa is amazing. The portions are huge, and it's just around the corner, so it adds to the convenience factor. And I think that's another thing of it too. It's like if it's too far away, I don't want to go. But yeah, this shocks you?
Not really.
But yeah, I mean, just because I dig White Castle when I'm not in the Crystal footprint, people think I'm crazy for eating White Castle. How could you eat that?
What's the question of the day? Because I'm confused.
What restaurant do you go to that everybody else thinks you're crazy for doing it?
Okay. I'm trying to think of an answer. Like,
is there a fast food restaurant or a restaurant that you have to go to for whatever reason, and everyone else who's gone there is like, dude, no. It's like the Huddle House, Waffle House argument. It's like, why do you go to Huddle House? Because Waffle House is better. Well,
no, if there's a Waffle House and a Huddle House across the street from one another, yes, I'm going to ask you why you went to Huddle House. Like that's very different than I think the rest of your story to follow your question. If there's a Crystal on one side of the street and a White Castle on the other, I'm going to Crystal. and that's going to be my choice. If there's only a White Castle and I want a small square burger that tastes different than a regular burger, then I'm gonna go to White Castle. It's just pretty simple. It's easy to make that decision.
Although I will say this about White Castle.
Yes.
Bacon on the burger is a mistake.
You just get the traditional. Like I don't even know why you're messing around with anything.
I just wanted to see, what a bacon cheese White Castle was all about. And you end up flailing and trying to eat the entire thing, and it's just like it's all over the place. It is like the dude in the commercial who went to the wrong restaurant, and you see him eating the undercooked slab of bacon, and that's the first thing that you get. You don't get any of the burger. You end up getting the bacon, and the whole slab of bacon comes out, and it just screws up the whole burger.
So I'm trying to think of an answer to your question, because it's kind of a strange one. Where do I go for fast food that people say, what are you doing? Why would you do that? I don't go to weird places for fast food, and people don't yell at me about my fast food takes. I guess the one that I would go with is occasionally, and it's a couple times a year maybe, I do like to go get a Filet-O-Fish at McDonald's. And don't really like McDonald's most times. If there's nothing else and I'm hungry, I'll get a cheeseburger because it's a freaking cheeseburger. It's not that difficult. If I have options, I'm going to go to Cookout first every single time. I'll go to Wendy's before I'll go to McDonald's for a burger. I'll go pretty much anywhere else for a burger. If I have no options, I'll get a cheeseburger at McDonald's. But there's some times where it's like, a Filet-O-Fish would be pretty tasty right about now, and I'll go get a Filet-O-Fish.
I've never gotten into Filet-O-Fish.
I don't get into it. It's just a few times I'm like, all right, that sounds good today. The basic chicken sandwich at Burger King is actually not bad either. I don't know if it's just mashed together bits of chicken in some kind of patty form, but
artificial chicken.
Basic chicken sandwich, the one that's like long, I'll do that one occasionally too. And those are just very basic sandwiches that people are like, nope, don't want that. That's not good. I will get those occasionally. That's about it. But chain or something like a place, no, I don't get mocked for fast food choices very often.
Much like I do get mocked for my fast food
you brought it up.
We do have some answers early on this morning.
Okay.
For this
Have you ever seen anybody play the game called soccer?
We'll get to it, Fred.
Daniel Price, the fast food restaurant he gravitates toward is Taco Bell, especially for their breakfast. It's fantastic, and no one can tell me otherwise.
I've not had their breakfast. I used to eat Taco Bell a lot. I have stayed away from the Taco Bell in actually quite a long time. So I need to try the breakfast. I need to give the breakfast an opportunity. I think I've said this before, and I still have not. So I'm sorry, Daniel Price.
Austin Arvidsson says, breakfast at Hardee's is so underrated.
Oh, no, that's good stuff. And if anybody mocks you for that, Austin, I'll come fight somebody. That's really good stuff. I don't like their normal food, but I like their breakfast a lot.
Yeah, that's about right. Daniel says, I'll be honest, I gravitate towards neither Crystal nor White Castle. Can't say I've ever craved either one.
It's a good change of pace. It's not something like if I'm just going out and I'm like, I just need to grab some fast food. I don't have time for anything else. I'm going to pick quite a few other places first, but it's a good change of pace.
Nick Brawley this morning for a hashtag Wacky Wednesday, apparently. He says, Hattie B's was some of the best food I've had in Nashville. If only the game was on Sunday, I could have gotten the chicken and waffles.
I am not getting the hot chicken. And I haven't been to Hattie B's for anything else, so I don't know. I've done the hot chicken once, and that was enough. If they have other options, I might have to go try that.
Michael Head on a Wall Pass Wednesday says, the fast food menu item that I miss and others think I'm crazy, Chick-fil-A's coleslaw. I miss it.
Yeah, that's good stuff. It was very solid. It was one of those things that I never went out of my way for, but it's like, oh, this is nice.
Joe Bost for the high school game of the week question. The Riverwood match, Joe, is next week, North Springs and Riverwood. So that is next week. He says he might slide by.
That's a good
It's good
rivalry.
to see
Those
Joe.
two teams don't like each other.
It's good to see Joe last night, by the way.
Always good to see Joe.
Okay, now Nick Brawley, once again, this one might challenge a lot of folks here.
Oh, boy, here we go.
Huddle House always beats Waffle House.
Oh.
Can't get cheese sticks, fries, and chicken fingers at the Waffle House.
Oh.
We have been hoodwinked, bamboozled, led astray, run amok, and flat out deceived.
Nick. Man. Very disappointed.
Yep. The Colonel's in this morning. He says that Crystal has the best single fast food breakfast item, #Scrambler, #Wildfest Wednesday.
That's a really good call by the Colonel. I agree.
And Daniel says, Daniel has a request for you.
Okay.
Look to your left, Jason.
No.
Look to your right.
Okay.
Do you see an ocean? Fillet of fish, really?
Yeah. Like I said, occasionally it's like, yeah, I want the fillet of fish. I know it's like processed whatever, and it's got like a tartar sauce and it's got a piece of cheese on it, and yep, there's times where it's really tasty.
And for the early round of answering this question, the boss is checking in from India.
Wow.
Yeah, it is.
Is there a crystal in India?
I don't think so. That is a question.
That would be amazing.
10:20 in the evening in India, and the boss is listening, and she says that you're right. Crystal's better. McDonald's filet of fish rocks, and the basic chicken sandwich at BK is awesome.
Yeah, it's surprisingly good. I mean, because I've tried when Burger King started to get all fancy, and if I had to pick between McDonald's and Burger King, I'm going to pick McDonald's. I don't really like either one that much. But when Burger King started adding all of the other chicken sandwiches, it's like, oh, you know, we have real chicken now, which kind of made you feel bad about eating the other chicken sandwich. But anyway, they weren't as good. They can add 27 different chicken sandwiches, and they're not as good as just the basic, like, generic, flattened out patty of chicken stuff. And I think it's probably super salty, and it's just
I can't
so
do
much
that.
better. It's got a little bit of mayonnaise on it. It's good. It's good.
Can't do that. Anything with too much salt, I can taste it because I grew up on a lot of salt, and now I can really taste the salt. Even the slightest amount of salt, I can really taste it, and it's easy for me to not have something because of the level of salt in it.
I didn't expect today's show to become fast food down here, but that's what it's turned into.
Oh, and it's only apparently 10 and a half hours difference. I thought it was 13, but it's 10 and a half hours difference to India.
How is it a half hour's difference?
You know, some time zones, they'll only do the half.
Really? That's confusing.
Don't know why, but yeah, apparently it's only 10 and a half hours difference. So I think Newfoundland is a half. And
it's Newfoundland. That's understandable.
And then India, the Mumbai, the Western India, is apparently a half. So it's
I had
10
enough
and a half.
problems with an hour difference in Nashville.
I know.
If I had to add another half hour into it, I'd be completely confused.
Yeah, so 7:52 p.m. in Mumbai, actually, right now. But the boss is listening.
Prime time in Mumbai. Soccer
Yeah.
down here.
Let's see. Patrick Sullivan. Chick-fil-A raisin and carrot salad is not as good.
No, I don't like that at all. That's just, no. I want no part of it.
Let's see. Oh, Jason Heinley is in this morning. He says tornadoes at the End Market, and End Market is a gas station that I think is, I know it's in South Georgia.
Yeah, I know there's some in South Georgia. I'm not familiar. I know of it, but I haven't really tried anything there.
But yeah, tornadoes at the End Market always gets crazy looks. Hits the spot sometimes. How about and so he's Jason. We will have a fantasy league update at some point.
That's the right answer to the question, because that's really outside the box.
Yes. Well, and I mean, you and I, when we go to QT, we'll get the roll up.
That's not outside the box.
Tostitos, what are those
things?
things?
For those. I generally try not to go for those.
Go for the hot dog.
Yeah, I go for the hot dog or whatever the sausage of the month is that they kind of rotate. Sometimes it's a bratwurst, sometimes it's a cheddar hot dog, sometimes it's a jalapeno cheddar. It's all over the place. Those are the ones that I like. I actually like the empanadas at Racetrack more. Those are actually pretty decent.
Let's see. Joe Bost agrees with you about the filet of fish. He says it's good sometimes, and then he shrugged shoulders emoji.
Every once in a while, yeah. It's probably twice a year that I'll be like, yep, I'll go have my filet of fish for the year.
Speaking of filet of fish, apparently Austin Arvidsson says the Chick-fil-A's in the Atlanta area are sampling a filet of fish this week, so you should get one, Jason.
Yes, they have done that, and I've had it, and it's really, really good.
And the Colonel has gone third person.
Wow.
And says that he says the Colonel normally doesn't do food talk on a soccer show or vice versa, but Arby's fish sandwich is the real deal. Hashtag
also true. Also true. I've had the Arby's fish sandwich. I remember when they broke that out, and it's very good.
And Daniel Price is adding in, he says he forgot to add in Wawa, best gas station food this side of the country.
Ooh, I don't know. Racetrack's pretty good. Quick Trip's good, too. I mean, both have actually upped their game a lot in recent years. But I'm not super familiar with the Wawas, so.
Yeah, I think that's more of a northeastern kind of a chain. But those are the early responses to the question that I posed to the floor.
All right. I still kind of wonder the whole reasoning behind the question, but it got a good discussion going early, so good job, John.
That's what we're here for.
Didn't make any sense, but all right. There we go. Let's get back to what Mr. Rogers wanted to talk about, and let's get into some soccer. So,
do you know the game called soccer?
I do, and let's talk about it. The big news yesterday was Montreal signing Victor Wanyama. 28 years old. I feel like he's older than that. I kept thinking he was older.
I know.
But he'd been with Tottenham since 2016. He bounced around before that. Defensive midfielder. He's captain of Kenya's national team. Montreal had to give up $150,000 in GAM to New England, who had his discovery rights. And that's usually those kinds of moves are around $50,000, not $150,000. So Montreal had to come out of pocket pretty big here. I know there's injury issues. What's the extent of the care you're going to have to take with Victor Wanyama? Aren't his knees a big question?
Yeah. I thought repeatedly they've been a question over the last handful of years.
That's what I was asking. So, I mean, they don't play on turf all the time. The Big O is going to be a little difficult for him, but I think by the time he gets here, he'll be okay. They should be at Stade Saputo, which is a great service. So I didn't expect him to pull this off. I did not expect this move to come down. I'm a little surprised by it, to be perfectly honest. So Spurs made the announcement early yesterday. He had been linked with moves away from Spurs for a while. So the question's going to be injuries. The question is going to be, can he stay healthy on a regular basis? And I don't know if that's going to happen, because you take a player who's got an injury history, you put him into Major League Soccer where there are stadiums with turf, there's a lot of travel. You know, if you're counting on him to be the guy 30 games out of the year, that might be too much. But the one thing about Montreal and their roster is they have depth in the middle of the park. You know, they've got Samuel Piette, they've got Saphir Taider. You're probably not asking him to be a regular starter. You're asking him to give you big moments in big games and be part of that group and give Taider and give Piette time off. Or you have the opportunity to go, you know, double pivot with Taider in front with Wanyama and Piette. I'm fascinated by it because it's a level of player that, you know, in the past we would not have seen a player come at this age to MLS and to Montreal. This is a big move. I just wonder what Montreal's going to get out of him. And that's the part we just don't know.
Since August of 2017, and I'm pulling the month out from 2013, 2014, and the hamstring injury in 2015, putting that to the side. Starting in August of 2017, he was out for basically half a year with cartilage damage. This is from our friends at Transfermarkt. So August 21 of 2017 to New Year's 2018, out with a knee injury. Out for the month of August 2018 with knee problems, and then a knee injury had him out for 2 months, starting Thanksgiving of 2018 until basically the beginning of February 2019.
I mean, it's
for
not
the
quite as long of an injury list as Daniel Sturridge, but it's pretty close.
And knowing this history that we have here, and forking over $150,000 in allocation money just so you can get Victor Wanyama in-house, I am approaching this with the raised eyebrow. I'm like, okay, if you see something, then I'm waiting to see it as well. I hope that you have a lot of trust in.
Whoa. You obviously see something.
Wanyama.
No.
I'm looking at out for half a year, out for a month, out for 2 months.
But we know what they see. You see talent. You see a player who is a very talented player. You do have to see the injury history alongside of it. But to wonder why Montreal would make this move, I mean, it's a duh. He's a talented player.
You're looking at output, and you're weighing output versus what we're talking about here with his knees.
The problem is you look at, since his first season at Tottenham, where he started 35 matches in league play, played in 36, played over 3,000 minutes. He played 838 minutes in the 2017-18 campaign, 509 minutes in the 18-19 campaign. This is all in Premier League play. And 23 minutes this season. 2 appearances in league play. Appeared in Champions League this season as well. It's declining, and you just have to wonder how much he can feature. The thing about Montreal is, though, you're not bringing him in as a starter and you're asking 34 games out of him because you have talented players in that part of the field. This feels like an opportunity that Thierry Henry and Montreal are taking because he was available, he's a talented player, and you can pick your spots with him. Because, you know, when you get to 28, I mean, he is what he is. You know what he is as a player. You know what he brings to the table. Can he do it on a daily basis? No, he probably can't. He's probably not going to be a guy who's going to be able to train every day with you. It's going to be pick this game. We need him here. We have, and it's too bad they couldn't get this done earlier where he could have factored in a Champions League, because this is why you bring in a player like this. But Canadian Championship, you know, you get into a semifinal, tough game on the road, you'd love to call upon a player like this to help lead your group. He's going to be a player who will probably help this team on the training pitch, whether he's participating or not, because of his experience. So, you know, for him, it's a move where he can see the field more because he's not seeing it at Tottenham, and that's not going to change. And Montreal gets a very talented, experienced player who you know can't play 90 minutes every week, and you have to make that work.
Yeah, and with the multiple competitions and getting this kind of experience and the kind of a player that Victor Wanyama is, you know, I see it, but like I said, I look at the knee first, and if you can just control, you know, not having him out there every single day, every single competition, and you can manage what you're going to get, I could definitely see, I can see the why, and I can see the upside in this, but obviously naturally wary because of all the absence that he's had.
So it's a free transfer. This has been reported from the Evening Standard in England and other sources that there's no transfer fee going to Tottenham for this. They had been asking £9 million for him in January, and that didn't materialize. And he was surplus to requirements for Jose Mourinho. So never the same after the knee injury, after his first season with Tottenham. And we will see what Thierry Henry and the impact can get out of him. It's definitely not going to be a everyday starter. And maybe just the change of scenery and getting time, maybe he can build back up to something in that ballpark, but it's going to take some time because he's barely played in the last year.
Kefsi's in this morning asking about Wanyama. Would the Wanyama move be something they did to improve their CCL or big game chances? I can't see him making the impact, that Bojan or some others have. Hearing you say something similar, so does this move happen due to getting through against Saprissa?
Props to Kefsi for the impact joke with the Montreal Impact. I like it. So I don't see him making that same impact because I don't see him on the field as much. But the problem is I don't think they're going to get him fast enough in terms of CCL. And I don't know what the process is actually in Canada. Maybe they will get him fairly quick. If they do, can he factor in next week in CONCACAF? That might be a big ask, but could he factor in the second leg of the quarterfinal against Olympia? Possibly. And Montreal can get past Olympia. So then you're talking about a semifinal. Whether you have Wanyama or not, you can get past Olympia. It's going to be tough, but it can be done. Then maybe you're talking about a semifinal where you've had some training sessions with him. He's been able to build up some fitness and get into this group. And yeah, it could factor in. We'll say big game chances in general, yes. I think that's why you go get him. If you're getting him on a free, you're paying $150 to New England. It's a lot in the sense of the league, but you don't have a transfer fee on top of it, so it's honestly not that bad. Depending on what you're paying him in salary, I'm assuming they have the cap space to do it. Yeah, you've got a big game player. So that's going to help you. And it's not going to be like Bojan because Bojan's a guy who can play, at least at this point, what he's shown so far more often than Wanyama. But if you're in a tough situation, he's a player you'd love to lean on because he's been there and done that in his career.
A couple of folks this morning are asking about the Quincy Amarikwa rumor that has come across. And they're wondering if it would be a good move. Nick Brawley saying rumors are rumors, but you think it would be a good move?
I don't remember where this actually got started. I saw it pop up, but I couldn't find the origins of the source here. So I'm a little, I don't know, I'm kind of wondering how valid it is. But
I found something on perfectsoccerskills.com.
Yeah, and who is that?
Eli Lesser.
And that's not in our list of usual sources that are to be trusted. That's the whole point here. But he's a player who's out of contract after playing 23 times for DC last year. Started 3 matches. He's turned into a super sub really since a year 2016 where he started 22 of 23 for San Jose. He's a big energy player, hard worker. He's going to run himself into the ground for you. I love his work rate. I've always felt like he was a talented player who hasn't been given a complete fair shake. He's always been a second guy or a third guy. He's never been the guy. And he wouldn't be the guy here. He'd be competing to be the guy with Adam John and potentially the false 9 idea with Pity Martinez. His best year was in Chicago in 2014, 8 goals, 5 assists. He had 6 goals and 4 assists in 17 starts with San Jose after moving over from Chicago in 2015. Became a weapon off the bench after that. He's available. He's a veteran. Would he add to the depth? Yes. Would he be a guy that I think you'd love to have coming off the bench right now? Sure. Would he be a player who's going to get you 10 goals? I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't know if he's actually the greatest fit tactically with this group. He's a different kind of forward. I think he likes to get in behind rather than combine with others. And you compare him to Adam John, who can do that, but he also can be a big target and can connect with the other players around him. I don't think that's really Amarikwa's game. I like Quincy Amarikwa. I'm a little surprised he hasn't ended up somewhere by now. I don't know if he's the greatest fit in Atlanta, but he is available. He is a veteran, and if you're looking for depth, that's the kind of signing who's going to give you a spark that you'd love to have. I think in terms of a starter to replace Joseph Martinez, you're probably looking at something else. Are you looking at a starter to replace Joseph Martinez? And that's a bigger question. There was a debate yesterday it might have been Monday on Extra Time, and they've clipped it and put it out, where Charlie Davies says that Pity Martinez should be the replacement as a false nine, and Matt Doyle says Adam John should be the replacement. Doyle said Pity Martinez wouldn't do the physical elements of being a number 9. That's not a false 9. A false 9, you're asking him to be a true number 9, so that's not necessarily correct in the way you're looking at what he would do. I don't think it's an either-or. I think it's going to be some matches you're going to want an Adam John or a traditional number 9 featuring in the role. Some matches, you can play a false 9. Let's go back to probably the greatest representation of a false 9 in the last few decades, and it was when Pep Guardiola played Lionel Messi there. He didn't do it all the time on a regular basis, and even when in situations where Messi was up top, he didn't always play it in the same way. It's not something that's going to work against every opponent, but as a change of pace, it can work. Pity Martinez as a number 9, he's not going to give you the ability in the air that you have out of Joseph or that you would have out of Adam John. Your crossing game is going to be very different with him as a number 9. Your spacing is going to be very different because he's going to drop into the midfield. Now, that's something Joseph has done more and more over the last year and a half, and that would fit with a Pity Martinez. That would not fit as much with Adam John. He's going to be much more of a focal point, although I've been pretty impressed with his movement off the ball and dropping into the midfield and helping bring others into the play. I just don't think this right now with the group you have is going to be, okay, you are now a number 9 and you will not play anywhere else and nobody else will play this position. It's not going to be that simple. I think Frank de Boer is going to have to get creative in picking opponents to play different types of setups. And I think that was already something that was in the cards this year in terms of bouncing around between a 3-4-3 and a 4-3-3. Now it's going to be an element of how you play your number 9 depending on the opponent. Are there some teams where Adam John could give you a big advantage because of his size up top? Or you look at it and say, we've got a huge advantage out wide, and either George Bello, Jake Mulroney on the left side, or Brooks Lennon on the right, they're going to be able to beat the player on that side and put in a ton of crosses. We'd rather have John here in this game because he's going to be a player who can get on the end of them. That's going to happen. And then there's going to be opponents, like I think Club America could be, where on the road you're going to be under pressure a lot. You're going to want a big number 9 to play out of that pressure, to play 2 as a target. Makes a lot of sense for John in that moment. But then in the home leg, where you would expect that you will have far more of the ball, maybe that's where you decide, what, our best way here is going to be to load up the team on attacking midfielders and play that way with Pity as the 9 in air quotes, Barco, Josetu, Heinemann, all players who can get forward and join into the attack and combine. That's going to be the way against some opponents. It doesn't have to be an either or. It can be both, and you can add a third option into it. And that's what we're going to see. It's going to take a minute, I think, to survey all the options. You have time in the window. You have current options. You have 2 very different ones with what you have on the roster now. If you add a Quincy Amarikwa, I think that's more for depth as a player off the bench in this role who can give you that late game surge, that late game you're chasing something, bring him on. He's going to run and run and run and run and try to make something happen. As a starter, you'd want to see how he fits. Can his game adjust a little bit based off playing with a team like this? I mean, let's be real. You look at his past history with teams. The San Jose Earthquakes were not a team that valued possession and tried to work the ball around. DC last year wasn't really that team either. Montreal in 2018 wasn't really that team. Go back to his old Chicago days. They weren't really that team. Can he fit into a system like this? Maybe so. And maybe we see something that we haven't seen out of him. But I think he would be depth. I think your better options are John and Pitty right now. But I think there's also the possibility of going out in the market and seeing what's available. If Montreal can pull off a move like a Victor Wanyama, you would think Atlanta could pull off some moves for a number 9 if there's one out there that they value.
And the discussion that you've given here is key. I mean, there's a reason that all of these individuals have been assembled in this space. It's game by game analysis of the opponent, what works here, what works here, what works here. You have multiple competitions that you're going to be in, that you're already in, and with all of these different teams and all these different games that are going to be coming at you, it's not just going to be one set starting 11, and it's going to be different variations of a theme all season long, and that's what successful franchises who are in multiple competitions are always going to be doing. It's like you analyze who you're playing, and as you've said, situations against the Club America would probably dictate something else in a home leg versus an away leg and things like that. And so that's just the biggest thing for me is just understanding the game by game idea of who you have in house, how they can be effective, who can work against what, to make sure that you can get the most positive results every single match out.
I think we have to stop looking at a lineup as a rigid thing written in stone, and that's just what it is every match. That doesn't happen as often as it used to. You want a team, and I think the reason why you bring a team like this together, or a roster like this together, is because you want a group that can shift into different things. You want players who can play different roles. You like to have a Brooks Lennon on the right side who can drop into a right back role in a line of 4, can play as a wing back, and can play as a right winger. You can make adjustments in the match because he's so flexible on that side, and he understands the different responsibilities in each of the roles. Guys like Remedi, Heineman, Hosetu, they can play any of the roles in the central midfield. They can drop deep and sit back as a 6. They can play as a box-to-box number 8. They can play as a 10. Even Remedi. Remedi's a different kind of 10, but he can play in that area and impact the game going forward. Barco can play out wide. He can come inside. Pitty, same thing. They can both step up and play as a 9. We've seen it. They can also drop deeper. You want a team that can shift based off what the opponent has done, and you come into the match with a game plan, but then what the opponent shows you or changes they make, you want to be able to make adjustments as well. And if you have a team that's flexible, your starting 11's not always going to be the same, and it's going to shift around in terms of shape during the match. So you want to keep that flexibility. And that's why a player like John actually had a lot of value to this group, because he gave you something that you didn't have. You didn't have that kind of forward before. Does that mean now, with Joseph Martinez out, you want to go to that kind of forward day in, day out? Probably not. But if he shows you that he can broaden his game a little bit, and he's never going to be Joseph Martinez, he's not going to play the same way, but can he replicate some of that to continue to build upon what you have worked towards and still give you that difference that you valued him to bring him in the first place? Great. Can Pitty Martinez replicate some of what Joseph Martinez gave you? Yes, I think he can, especially the dropping deep and combining and all those elements. That's Pitty's game. He can handle that. But can you get that out of him without sacrificing the things that makes Pitty special? And that's something we'll have to see. It's going to be early on especially, it's going to be game by game. It's going to be figuring out what the opposition gives you. You look at a Cincinnati team that, I'm still early in my prep on it, but Cincinnati really had problems defending on the left side. And Greg Garza was part of that. Garza, we know likes to get forward when he can. Yu Yakubo is a forward who was playing left wing, and it showed he really didn't help at all defensively. So when they got caught out of position on that side, Red Bulls ran riot. So if you're Atlanta United looking at that, it's like, okay, this could be a big day for Brooks Lennon. Is he going to be able to do that and get in behind and go to goal himself? Or is this going to create opportunities for him to get down the line and put in a cross? Is that where we want Adam John? But then you look deeper at Cincinnati and you see a back line that has a player like Kendall Waston, and you're like, do we want to even go into that? Do we want to go into crosses? John can battle with Waston. We know that. But do you want to make it more difficult for a Kendall Waston by playing a false nine that's going to drop away from that line? And then Waston has to make a decision. Am I going to stand here and cover space, or am I going to go chasing Pity Martinez all over the field and run myself into the ground? That's where you get into this cat and mouse game and this tactical game, and that's where Frank de Boer is going to have some opportunities now that have presented themselves to do things differently and be able to hurt teams in a different way. You kind of knew what to expect before. Even though Joseph has added a ton of layers to his game in the last year plus, you kind of know what to expect. If he's on the field, you're going to make sure he's accounted for, and he's not going to drop off the line enough to be true false nine type of category. But you're going to have somebody with him at all times. If you get into a situation with an Adam John, you're going to have a physical battle. If you get into a situation with Pity Martinez, you're going to have to make decisions because he's not going to stay where a number 9 typically stays. And do you want your center backs just to stand there and mark space? It's going to be interesting, and it's going to challenge the way I think some people look at the game. Just like that discussion on Extra Time, it's not Pity Martinez doing what Joseph Martinez did. He's not Joseph Martinez. He's not a number 9. So the physical side of it doesn't play into it. You're not going to ask him to go up and try to win a bunch of crosses and put headers on goal and do those things. That's not his game. You'd be crazy to ask him to do that. And Adam John can come in and do that, but there's no reason why you have to say we're going to change the way we play and play Adam John all the time, and that's it. We're never going to do anything else. You can change up your tactics. And I think you're going to see that even more this year. You were already heading in that direction. I think with more subtle changes. I think now you could see some big changes in the way this team attacks out of necessity.
Daniel's back in. He says, our versatility on the pitch allows us to change our shape and have many different ways of attacking and defending. Frank de Boer has built in contingencies for injuries in various circumstances. You're
going to have to get creative. I mean, it's going to come down to it about getting creative and finding the solution for the game at hand. Cincinnati presents a different challenge than Kansas City. Every team presents a different challenge. Every team has positives and negatives. They have things that you can exploit. They have things that, the opponent can hurt you, and you have to deal with that. And that means you're going to change shape. You're going to change personnel. You're going to change the way you play. The game at Motagua looked very different than the game here against Motagua. Some of that's down to the pitch, but some of that's down to the situation and the scenario as well. That's going to happen all season. I think it's going to be more pronounced this year. That flexibility helps you do that, and it's going to be very important. Pitti can play the false 9. Barco could play the false 9. Maybe a player like a Mateus Rossetto could, although I think there's less experience for him being in that role. But he can step up and play one of the attacking midfielder spots if you keep the same 3-4-3. You could decide to go 4-3-3 and go false 9 with that. You could elect to go either one with more of a true target number 9 and Adam John. I think anything is possible at this point. Anything is possible. Go back to the Open Cup semifinal last year. When going into that match, you knew Joseph was not going to be available. You're going to Orlando, and we were going through all the different scenarios of what the lineup could look like. You really only had at that point, 'cause I think Vasquez was out injured as well. The only player you had with experience in MLS as a number 9, and it was more of a second forward, was Justin Merrim. So it was like, well, maybe he'll tuck inside, he'll be the forward, and you'll do something different. What did Frank de Boer do? He played Pitti and Barco as the 2 forwards and made it work. Heinemann was behind them, and it took a minute for them to figure out the spacing because it was very different. You saw just a few crosses early on, and there's nobody in the space where the cross is going to because you weren't playing with a true number 9. But once it got sorted out, you got the goal, and you dominated the game because you're able to dominate possession when you bring on another midfielder, in this case 2 more midfielders as forwards. So there's going to be games where that's what you want to do. There's also going to be games where that might not be what you want to do. Welcome to MLS in 2020. The rest of the world, you've got teams that are doing this. I think you're going to start to see it more, and it's really going to be interesting to watch. And it's going to be a work in progress because I think now this team's going to have to find other ways to play than it ever has, and maybe some of these players ever have. And it's going to be fascinating to watch this develop.
Jim Lepp had a show question.
Okay.
He says, I know she's a tad busy at the moment, but once the transfer window closes, can you get Lucy Rushton on to describe her last few months? Specifically, if she could, for example, lead through the process of identification through the pursuit to the signing of a player, perhaps say a Castro or a Hosechu.
Yeah, it'd probably be something maybe after the summer window, because that's where there's a little bit of a break in that role. I mean, right now, you're probably hitting all of your databases and looking for that diamond in the rough that might be available for the right price that fits what you want. So right now is a very busy time, and then I think you were already kind of busy starting to look ahead at players who could be available in the summer and who could fit. So it'd be a very cool conversation, and we'll see what we can do to pull that together.
Chris Ashley, part of the Yeah That Soccer Show podcast in Greenville, and a part of our Greenville Triumph Weekly, which will be coming back in a couple of weeks' time, has a question. As of about an hour ago on Sky Sports, Italian sports minister Vincenzo Spadafora says the government is likely to order all Serie A games to be played behind closed doors for the next month due to the coronavirus outbreak. So Chris is saying that we probably should discuss the likelihood of this type of thing happening here in the coming months on a Wall Pass Wednesday.
It's way too early, I think, to speculate on it. One thing that we talked about on soccer over there is, in Europe, where this is being more of an immediate conversation, TV factors into it in a different way. So for Champions League, for example, those games, the TV value is so high, you're probably going to play them behind closed doors rather than postpone them. In Italy, there's questions about whether you postpone and then play them later, or play them behind closed doors, and there's a lot of back and forth about it. In England, for example, if it comes to it, and it's been talked about, I think because the TV is such a huge part of their revenue, those games would get played behind closed doors before they'd be postponed. Well, TV is not as big of the factor in Major League Soccer as it is in England, for example. So is it better with, gate revenue being so much more of a factor in terms of overall revenue? Would it be better to postpone games here if you get to that point? And I think here in the U.S., you're going to have these conversations in a bigger way. It's not going to be one league making it like it is in Italy and going back and forth on decisions. You're going to have the NBA, the NHL, Major League Baseball, and MLS all in alignment. You're not going to have one play games, nothing changes, and then another not play games, and then another play behind closed doors. You're not going to have that. It's going to be everybody in alignment. So MLS is going to take its cues from those leagues as well. it's just way too early to tell. It's way, way too early to tell, and there's just no way to know where this is going to, spin off to. It's only really getting started over here, where in Italy, for example, they've been dealing with it for a while. In Asia, it sounds like the numbers are going down, but they still have big questions in Japan about the Olympics. And the Chinese league is scheduled to start in April, and I haven't heard any potential changes to that. I think it's scheduled to start in about a month. So you just have to stay tuned. There's no way to know, and it's well beyond my area of expertise. So I'm just kind of in the waiting game with everybody else. I don't think there's any reason to expect things to be canceled anytime soon, but could that change? Obviously, yes. Anything can happen with this. Let's take a break right there. We'll get back into hour number 2 and more Wall Pass Wednesday right after this.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yep, he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service, Ad Council, and your state forester.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
This is what matters. This is beyond X's and O's. This is the difference mutual respect makes. This is what character looks like. This is what defines us in Georgia. This is sportsmanship. School sports. It's not the outcome that matters most, but the way the games are played. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinski of Apolinski and Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
You're listening to Soccer Down Here daily on SDH Networks, a division of OSG Sports. Find us at Soccer Down Here on Facebook and Twitter. The time is now the top of the hour. Peep, y'all.
Welcome back. Hour number 2, Soccer Down Here, March 4th. It's a Wednesday. We're still in a Wall Pass Wednesday, so send us some questions. We will give you some answers, or we'll make some up, or we'll just stall till we figure out something to say. That's fair, too. It happens occasionally. We do our best.
Is this thing on?
Yeah.
React to me.
Pretty much. Don't even need drops. John just does them himself. It's good. All right. Here's what we've got coming up that you need to put down on your calendar. Friday. It is the first official edition. It is episode 1. It was a pilot last time. Episode 1 of The Run-Up, hosted by John Nelson and Kelly Francis, previewing Atlanta and Cincinnati this weekend. Really looking forward to this over at the Brewhouse Cafe. If you do not have tickets to the match on Saturday, you will have an opportunity to win a pair of tickets on Friday night. It's 7 o'clock at the Brewhouse. Please come out and join us. We'll be taking questions from the audience. John and Kelly will have jokes more than likely. It will be a good time.
Alleged jokes from me.
Well, of course. But come out and join us. It'll be fun on Friday night, 7 o'clock at the Brewhouse. And if you can't make it, you will be able to listen, and you might be able to watch. But it's better if you're there, because then you can ask questions, and you can point and laugh when John has bad food takes.
And there's a question for that later on in the show.
Oh, boy. Here we go. All right. So, What else do we have on the wall past Wednesday?
The Colonel says the Fire may not have a big-name DP, but they got big names in the TV broadcast booth.
Yeah, you got to give Chicago a lot of credit with what they've done. Let's go big picture here about this Chicago Fire club. All right. They got a new logo. I like the other one better. But
yes.
You got new colors. It looks fine. The colors are fine. I don't have a problem with it. I'm not a fan of a team that's branded itself as the men in red that turns into the team in navy blue, but okay, it looks pretty good. I actually did like the Red Sox with the navy blue in the kit on Sunday, so props to that. You didn't just go all navy blue, broke it up with some Red Sox. Cool. If they didn't have good logo and good branding before, I don't think this one would be as bad. Anyway, you've made a change. You've made a clear mark. You've drawn a line in the sand, and you have said, this is not your old Chicago Fire. You're on WGN TV. That's big. WGN is a huge historic legacy brand in Chicago. That's where your TV partner is now. It's a lot better than being on ESPN Plus, and that's all you have. That's big. And now you've went out and you've got Arlo White, who everybody knows from calling Premier League games on NBC. You've got Tony Meola, huge name and huge presence with his show Counterattack on SiriusXM FC every afternoon. And you've got Tyler Terrence filling in for Arlo White when he has Premier League duties. And he will have Olympics duties as well this fall or late summer. So that's a broadcast team that it's big names. Big names. The players, not so much yet, but this is a good performance in week one, and you've got some talent in this team. You don't have the big-time name to rally around, sell tickets on the field, but it looked pretty good, and they were honestly maybe a little unlucky not to get a point in Seattle. It does feel like a new day for the Chicago Fire. I'm actually optimistic about the Chicago Fire right now. I'm getting a little bit of an itch, too, so I'm a little confused by all of it, but I'm optimistic. I think they're doing the right things, and they've got an owner who's committed, and he is committing his resources to it. The move to Soldier Field, I believe, will pay off. 30,000 tickets sold for the home opener against Atlanta in 2.5 weeks. You're going to sell more in the next 2.5 weeks, especially if you can pull off a win here on the road in one of these next couple games. I think things are looking good for Chicago. It feels like a new day for the Chicago Fire and a good day.
And for those that do not know, Arlo White is a massive Chicago Cubs, Chicago Bears fan. So you add that little bit of added element to it where the Cubs and Bears fan gets to call games for the MLS team in Chicago, gets to keep an eye on his Cubs, gets to keep an eye on his Bears, and be on the historic station that was a part of the Cubs forever and ever and ever until they decided to create their own network. So there's that a little bit of emotional pull as well for Arlo to be attached to this venture that the Chicago Fire have in mind.
Yeah, that's the other element to it is with WGN specifically, they have now lost all of their other sports properties. I mean, there is a difference, too, and I think you need to understand that it's kind of like TBS when they had to split their signal back, I want to say 10, 15 years ago. You know, back in the day, TBS had Braves games on, they had Hawks games on, they went out nationally. That was part of making the Braves America's team. WGN had the Cubs and had the Bulls. And it was pretty cool to have the Bulls for a long period of time like they did. The Cubs, I watched a ton of Cubs games in the afternoons because games were on in the afternoon. I'd come home from school as a kid, and the Cubs are on, watch them, watch the Braves later. I follow the Cubs because of that. So now, and I'm guessing you might know this, John. I don't know it off the top of my head. With the way cable laws and rules have changed and the way that some of these sports properties and contracts have changed, they've had to split signals. So, like, you could get WGN here in Atlanta, but you're not going to get Chicago Fire games because it's on the local WGN, not WGN America, which is what we see here.
Yeah, and that's the thing with local broadcast properties and all of these contracts. You're not going to infringe upon, and this is fancy words here, the geographic footprint of others with your properties. Basically, yes, Gwen, exactly.
Yeah, Gwen's up on her cable rules.
Yeah, so that's why WGN America gives you all of the dramas and everything else that's there on a night when the Fire would be on in the time slot. I don't know if you're going to be getting news on WGN America or if you're going to just continue to get syndicated programming, Murder, She Wrote, or Murder.
I think it might even be to a point with WGN that it's almost like two separate channels.
Mm-hmm.
I know
That's
when
true,
it first
yes.
started with TBS, it was very similar, but not completely different with the two channels and programming, and it evolved to where they just got rid of the local feed for Channel 17 in Atlanta, and they turned it into Peachtree TV.
Yeah.
WGN, I think, just programs it as two separate channels, although there is some crossover, obviously, but a lot of separate things. So this is for WGN locally. They lost the Cubs, who went and did their own network. They lost the Bulls a while back. I don't know if WGN ever had the Blackhawks. They had the White Sox a couple times here and there, but never for any extended periods of time. So they didn't have a sports property, and that's one thing they've always been known for in the Chicago market. So they get the Fire, and they're going to put a good bit of attention to it, I would think. So just that name, that heritage, that credibility, that helps getting in broadcasters like Arlo, like Miola, like Terrence. That's going to help. And again, it feels like a move that when you hear this, you're like, Chicago doing the right things. That's good.
Yeah, it is. And, there's a part of you that wishes that it was the old days and you didn't have all of the geographic splits and everything where you could kind of keep an eye on WGN just to see about presentation and everything, especially with
ESPN Plus,
which I have.
And that's where you can watch.
Well, I like watching, it's like WGN. It's like you sit there and you watch Harry Carey, you watch Steve Stone, you watch the Cubs games, and that's what it's there for.
It's the WGN feed. It's just on ESPN Plus. You're just watching it out of market, John.
Yeah. Ryan has come in this morning.
That doesn't even make
and
sense.
He has keep going. Yeah. Ryan's in this morning, and he has a question to the floor on a wall pass Wednesday.
All right.
He says, what are worse, John's food takes or his fantasy lineup?
Right now it's his food takes because his fantasy lineup was respectable.
Yeah. Lower 30% of the
mine
leagues.
Was complete hot garbage, worse than your food takes past week. I had all kinds of bad luck.
So, wait a second. So, you finished toward the bottom. How could you have such horrific bad luck?
I had bad luck. We talked about this.
I know that we both had Joseph.
Yep, Captain Joseph. That didn't work out.
Did that?
Jossie's Artist couldn't find a goal against 10-man New York City. Raul Ruiz-Diaz couldn't find anything. Jordan Morris took all the goals in Seattle. So my attack was bleh. I had at least one. I think I might have had two New York City players in there, and they get a red card 2 minutes into the game. So not much attacking out of that.
No.
So it happens. It's 1 week. Your season is not defined by 1 week. But yes, mine was crap.
Bartimus Prime, to the question that started off the show, he says Sheetz is better than Wawa with 4 greater than signs. That's the only reason I can, and that's the only reason I can think of that Mike Connie blocked me.
I've heard this about Sheetz. I've been to a Sheetz before, but I don't think I've sampled all the greatness that Sheetz has because there are a lot of people who get really worked up about this place.
Malpinjo this morning says it looks like Joseph's injury has affected Mo's offer of $1 off a burrito for each Atlanta United home goal. It used to be capped at $3 in their promo email this morning. It seems to be unlimited again. Scratching chin emoji.
Make them pay, Adam John.
Let's see. Will Dickerson on the food takes. He says, Wawa meatball sub for the win.
Oh, I don't like meatball subs in general. I'm definitely not getting one at a gas station.
It's too messy. You especially if you want to take it with you in the car and you don't bite it the right way, and then the meatball and the sauce just goes all over the place. There's too much margin for mess and distraction if that happens.
No, I just want no part of it. No part of it at all. It's no good. I'm definitely not getting it at a gas station. Sorry, Wawa.
And then Bart says, I will fight for these sheets, snack wraps, and mac and cheese bites.
It's a snack wrap? It's not a snack wrap?
I guess because it's sheets.
Yes, I understand the logic behind the branding. I'm just saying.
It's a snack wrap. So, yep. Mac and cheese bites. But the thing is, the key with a mac and cheese bite, though, is I would think that you would have to cook it practically perfectly, because if it's undercooked, you're not going to like it. If it's overcooked, it's burned and it's too much effort, and no one likes burned mac and cheese.
All right, here's something I'm terrified of now. I'm actually kind of afraid of seeing this.
The sheets snack wraps?
No. We've been talking about the fillet of fish. I have not tweeted about the fillet of fish. We've been talking about it. And I update Twitter, and I'm scrolling through. What do I get an ad for? Sonic now has a fish sandwich. Sonic and Twitter is listening to the show and putting ads in my Twitter feed based off what we're talking about.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Sonic is. I like Sonic. I like Sonic burgers. Sonic burgers are great. Sonic tots. I will get the tater tots instead of fries every single time I go to Sonic.
Give their fish sandwich a chance.
I'm not a fish sandwich guy.
Okay, then just be mad about fish sandwiches in general. It says Alaska seafood, wild Alaska pollock.
It's true.
That's what they say. I don't know if it's true. That's what they're advertising.
Pollocks.
No, that was awful.
I'm not a fish sandwich guy. So for those of you who like fish sandwiches, go to Sonic now.
Oh, I'm going to have to go to Sonic now because they put it in my face. They put a fish sandwich in my face because they listen to the show, and I'm terrified.
They've infiltrated your Twitter.
Sonic and Twitter have listened to the show, and now whatever we talk about, they're going to advertise for me.
Chris Hutchison this morning says that, sorry, but all this talk about a 9 makes him think of Revolution 9 by the Beatles.
That's a good pull. I believe REM actually covered that. I'll have to go back and double check. I think they did. I liked it.
Will Dickerson, back to Wawa, says subs, coffee, and pretzels from Wawa.
Okay.
Then
I'm not a big coffee guy in general, so some of this stuff I'm kind of out of the conversation.
Yeah. Daniel Price says, the more and more I think about it, soccer question, the less I feel like the team goes out and gets a starter. We have so many pieces that they don't need another except for maybe depth. Lots of options. Husetu, Pitti, Barco, John, Castro, and even Hyndman as of late.
Well, I think that's going to be the conversation is, do you have the starter in-house or is it a rotation with John, with Pitti? If you feel good about that, then yes, you're going to have to go get some depth. And that's where Quincy Amarikwa or somebody like that could factor in. Otherwise, if you don't feel comfortable with John or Pitti kind of dividing things up and playing as the number 9, then you're going to go out and get a starter. In a perfect world, you keep the team as it's been built and you go get somebody to replace Joseph Martinez. It's not a perfect world. All the windows are not in place to be able to go get whoever you want. You don't have unlimited funding. You're stuck in some ways. So that ability to go get somebody as a replacement and keep things in place is limited. Doesn't mean it can't happen. But you have to weigh all of the options. And that does take a little bit of time to do because you have to see who's available at what price in your budget, who would be stretching your budget to the point that you'd have less wiggle room later on in the year if you need it, who would be a perfect fit at a number that fits what you want to do, and you have to assess what you have. And do you want to continue with what you have and incorporate a Husetu, maybe go more 4-3-3 and play more with true wingers and bring in Emmanuel Castro to play as a winger on a regular basis. You've got a lot of different things floating around, which makes it difficult in some ways, but it also gives you a lot of different solutions. So I don't think you're going to see something happen very fast. I think it's going to take a little bit of time to figure this out. So this weekend, Club America in Mexico, Kansas City, and probably the second leg of Club America, you're thinking about what you have in place or who you could get in camp quickly to help you with that.
James McClatchy this morning, he says, you mentioned prepping for Cincinnati. Can you advise a fan, could you advise a fan and how they should prep? 2 or 3 things that aren't too time consuming.
Yeah, I mean, what I do is time consuming. So don't do what I do unless you have a bunch of time to commit to it. I go back and watch full games and read everything that's out there and look at highlights as well, and then dig deeper on like player bios and stuff, especially this time of year. I think for a fan, if you're trying to get a sense of who they are, go back and watch the last match they played. And in this case, that's the only one you have. I don't think you have any preseason games to go back and look at. Look at the highlights from the last game. I believe Cincinnati has a good writer with The Athletic, so go back and read the last couple pieces there. They do not have an SB Nation site, which is a little surprising to me. So you don't have that outlet. The local paper covers them really well, so you can go check that out. Those are the things that I'll go to. Pro Soccer USA, I don't know if they have a Cincinnati correspondent or not. That's the easy stuff, is highlights of the last couple games. Go back and read the last couple articles at The Athletic, at Pro Soccer USA. If the team has an SB Nation site, go check that too. And just to get a sense of what the feel is for that team coming in. Because it's important. I mean, it affects your expectations. It gives you, something to look for in the match. So you want to get a sense of what their storyline is coming in. I mean, briefly, for where I'm at right now with Cincinnati, you've got a lot of questions because of the managerial situation. You've got questions that have been raised about, how many people were on board with the decision for Ron Jans to be pushed out, how many wanted him to stay. It sounds like a very complicated situation with all of that. You've got a roster that is better and improved, but not 100% strong just yet. So there's things to look at with that. But look at the Red Bulls game, look at the goals they gave up, and look at the goals that they scored, and get a sense of it that way. But yeah, read a little bit and watch highlights. I think that's the easy part.
And then Kempsey this morning to wrap up what we currently have on Twitter. So if anybody's got any Walpassian things that they wish to put on the timeline, go for it. Kempsey says, if I were to say to you, the league looks much stronger on the attacking side after 1 week, would you agree?
Yes. I think MLS will always slant that way because with the way the cap is structured and the way designated players are set up, and TAM played into this as well, you can't spend the same amount of money on all facets of the team. And if you can only spend it on one part of the team, you're going to spend it on the attack because that's what is going to sell T-shirts. That's what's going to sell jerseys. It's what's ultimately going to sell tickets. So you have more attacking talent in the league than defensive talent. So it's always going to slant to the attack, even early in the year where it should slant a little more defensively because you can teach defensive tactics. Attacking generally takes a little more chemistry to be hitting on all cylinders. Right now, you've just got some strong attacking talent, and you're relying on individual talent that's getting you some spectacular goals, and actually quite a few goals in week 1.
Because then Kempsey follows it up with, is what teams can expect to achieve a plus 10 goal difference this year. Only LAFC with a plus 48, NYCFC with a plus 21, and Atlanta United with a plus 15 did that last season in MLS.
Yeah, but goal differential and a big goal differential, the defense does factor into it. You know, Atlanta had a good defense last year. New York City had a good defense last year. LAFC was ridiculous in the attack, and it skewed it the other way. That's why it was so big. But you have to have a good defense as well to go along with it. So the teams with a strong goal differential will have both and might be skewed more towards the attack, but still have a strong enough defense. It's just the way the league's built. You're always going to have better attackers than defenders until there's no cap and until teams, see the value and the return on their investment for investing heavily in defenders.
Sean Vergara wants to know if we can go to Nashville every year. He says it was such a fun weekend. He says also that you bailed on post-game festivities, but he'll give you a hashtag wall pass.
I felt like crap after the game. My hands were frozen, and I was just exhausted. The weekend was a long one. I mean, drove up there, did 2 hours of radio on Friday night. Was there for a good bit of Dukes and Bell as well. Talked to folks afterwards. I did another interview after that Friday night. I did an interview Saturday early, Friday night and Saturday early, more research, more prep. And then we were at the stadium, a good 4 or 5 hours before kick. Awesome to meet folks out in Lot A and do all that and then get into the stadium and get ready. And it's first day. It's chaos. There's all kinds of things going on. We did AT&T countdown to kickoff. We did a full hour of pregame, did the match, did an hour of postgame. By the time postgame ended, I was just exhausted. Yep. I was completely and utterly exhausted. So I apologize, Sean Vergara. I was too tired to come out. It will happen at some point.
Then where did we go on the way back to the hotel?
Waffle House, because it was across the street from the hotel.
And we had multiple choices, but we chose Waffle House, and that was solid. That's always the late night solid is going to Waffle House.
Yeah, I didn't feel like getting McDonald's or Wendy's and going back to the hotel. It was like, all right, let me just sit here, eat some Waffle House, and then go sleep.
AA Five Stripes with a question this morning. Who is or was the last homegrown number 9 in the United States? And there's more questions to follow.
In the United States, with the way the question's written, I guess we're not just talking about like an actual homegrown player in the MLS rules. So this is going to get interesting with the way you define it, because people will argue that Christian Pulisic was not developed in the United States, except he was. He went to Borussia Dortmund at like 16. Now, he's special in the sense that his dad was a former professional in Europe and then in the United States in the indoor game, so he had some advantages that your average American kid probably didn't have in terms of learning at home. Let's see. So, I'm trying to think of the best way to tackle this question. Let's look at... Let's just work backwards in terms of the pool. So, Josie Altidore, developed in the United States. Went to Europe, but developed in the United States. Developed in South Florida, actually. Jossie's Artist is a very true epitome of a homegrown American striker. Was a homegrown with the Galaxy, I think, from the Carson area, if I'm not mistaken. And he's a product of MLS in that sense. Clint Dempsey was a product of Nacogdoches, Texas, and didn't develop in a traditional way as going overseas early and all that. So, I mean, it really depends on how you want to define it. And people are going to define it in the way that they want for whatever their agenda is. Because there will be people who will say, well, Christian Pulisic, if he had stayed in MLS, he would have been crap. That's not true. That's not true at all. Could he have been as good as he is now? Maybe. Landon Donovan was better by playing in the United States than playing in Germany and being miserable. The performances showed it. He's a different personality. Some players go to Europe and become better players there. People and their individual differences have a huge factor in this. It's not for everybody. Some players will perform better by being in a place where they grew up, or a place where they're comfortable, or with a coach that gets them. Just because you go to Europe doesn't mean you're going to turn into a great player. Just because you go to Europe at 13 years old, or 15 years old, or 16 years old, doesn't mean you're going to be a great player. You know, look at a player like Zion Jones, who came through Atlanta United's academy, more for Georgia United initially, but was in the early seasons of Atlanta United's academy, went to Schalke, and didn't get an opportunity, didn't fit. And then he ended up with the Charlotte Independence. He would have been better off to not make that move, because he didn't get time and he didn't develop, and it wasn't the right place for him. Others have made a move like that and have developed. So there's no one way. There's no blueprint here. But actually there's quite a few talented players who have come through the United States. It depends on where you want to cut off this homegrown idea. Because Pulisic started his development here, went to Dortmund a little bit later than some. Tyler Adams played professionally. I mean, not a forward, but he played professionally here and then went. So I'm looking at a list just for a basis of comparison. At Goal.com, Ivis Galarsep wrote it last summer about the top 100 Americans in the 2022 World Cup pool, potential roster. So, you know, a lot of speculation here. We'll talk about the forwards. Josh Sargent. So Josh Sargent didn't play professionally in the United States. He goes over, and look, there's people questioning. He did great with the reserve team at Werder Bremen. He's not seeing the field a ton right now, and he had a bad game, and everybody started to throw him under the bus. He's still young. I still think they messed up the whole thing with the Gold Cup and the U20 World Cup, but that's just me. Would he have been better to stay here and play more regularly early on? Maybe, maybe not. But it's not great at the moment for him. That could change anytime. But Sargent's a player who went over young. Tim Weah is a player who has bounced around and bounced around. He's at PSG. That's great. That looks great on the CV. He wasn't going to play. He wasn't going to play there. So was that the best spot for him? There's just no easy way to do it. Giovanni Reina right now killing it as a, you want to call him a 10, you want to call him a secondary forward, put him wherever you want in those roles. He's killing it. And hopefully he can continue to develop and keep progressing. Sebastian Soto, I think, is an incredibly talented young American player who's not seeing the field. It's not helping his development to be in Europe. It's not helping him at all. Jordan Morris is a player who might have went to Europe and might not have found the right fit. He stayed in the U.S., stayed with MLS, stayed in Seattle. Jordan Morris is an absolute player. And he's a player that right now I think has to be a starter for the U.S. national team. And he's a complete prime example of a homegrown talent. So there's no blueprint, and a lot of it depends on how you want to define homegrown. Because everybody to some extent developed here. I think there are players who developed here longer, and there are players who developed here shorter, and there are success stories on both sides. There's just not one way.
Then a follow-up question. Does the DP spending on attackers limit the growth of U.S. forwards to have the opportunity to play? Easier to play homegrowns in defense and midfield?
It can. It absolutely can. It's a good question because you are going to go spend your money on attacking players, and that's going to limit the opportunities for young up-and-coming players. They're going to have to find ways to prove themselves. That's why I think the second teams in USL Championship and USL League One are very important. I think teams that create a culture at the club of incorporating young, talented players from the academy into first-team training sessions is very important. because then you get that basis for comparison. If you have a young, talented, either academy player or recent homegrown signing training next to a designated player, you get to compare, and the player gets to compare, and the player gets to see where they stand. And good managers are going to play the best player, period. Now, a designated player is a little different because you're putting a huge investment into them, but let's say you have just a highly paid forward from wherever, from France, and he's 30 years old and he's not scoring goals, and you've got an 18-year-old that you signed to a homegrown deal that has scored goals with your second team, that is performing in training. A good manager is going to play the player who's performing, period. So the second teams are very important to give these guys that first crack, and they have to perform there, and then they just have to beat out the player ahead of them. In the long term, I think it can help because you're getting talent in, and these young players are getting a chance to train and learn from these talented players coming over. That's the long term. The short term, yes, it's keeping them off the field because you're bringing in a player that's better and taking time, which is what a professional club has to do because you have to play the best players you can to win games. The medium term is what we have to start to see, where these young players get their opportunities with the second team, they prove themselves, and when the door opens with the first team, they don't let it open again to go get another designated player or somebody else. They take that spot and they make it their own. And that's going to be the hardest part because you're going to have open-minded managers. You're going to have young players who take advantage of the opportunity and have been prepared to take advantage of the opportunity. And the opportunity is going to have to present itself. And it will with some clubs. Dallas is a prime example. Dallas has made the decision that we're not necessarily going to go out and just spend on designated players and block our young, talented players from playing. You know, a player like Jesus Ferreira is a prime example of this. Other clubs will do the same. Some clubs are always going to go spend, and they're not going to put much of an emphasis on developing players. And that happens worldwide, too. That happens everywhere. And that's okay. What I would love to see, I think, because of all of that backstory that we just talked through, I do think that MLS needs to get away from homegrown territorial restrictions. If you're a talented striker and you grow up in Atlanta and you're scoring goals for fun and you've went through all of your academy teams and you're dominant, and you look at Atlanta and you say they have Joseph Martinez and they just signed him for 4 years, and not talking about the injury today, I'm talking in general, I'm not going to get a crack there because they've got somebody. I need to go somewhere else. That player shouldn't be blocked from doing that because of where they were born. They didn't get to choose that. So the other example is a team like the Red Bulls, who have a very distinct style of play. If you're growing up in Dallas and you might not fit the way FC Dallas plays, but your game is perfectly suited to play for the Red Bulls and get an opportunity quickly, you should be able to go sign there, period. The territorial restrictions are going to have to go away as this continues to evolve, because young players should be able to pick where they want to go and go to a team where they think they're going to have the best opportunity. And then the teams that play young talent and give them that opportunity are going to get the best young talent. And that's going to give them an advantage because they've earned it. And the teams that want to go and spend more money on players from outside the league are going to be able to do that and do their thing. And they're not going to have to invest in the academy as much because they don't value it in the same way. Teams can build different ways. And I think that's a next step that really needs to happen, and will give these young players more of an opportunity to break through because they can pick the spots where they'll have a better opportunity to break through.
For the history lesson, and I'm with you that I think that the territorial restriction needs to be removed. But for the history lesson, why was the territorial restriction put in there in the first place?
Oh, I don't know. You have to go ask MLS and U.S. Soccer and all of that. It's probably to, prevent. Honestly, I don't even know, because I don't think these clubs were offering money to these kids for their families to move across the country. You know, it's not like the Galaxy. We're going to go out and get a kid from Chicago and pay to move the family and get them jobs and all that on a regular basis. It was only going to happen occasionally if it did. Probably to protect. So early on when MLS mandated that teams had to invest in the academy at a certain level and field development academy teams and all of that, that was a way to restrict big clubs from getting players out of another team's market where they're being forced to do it. So that's why if you do this and you say, okay, territorial restrictions, gone. Young players can go sign and play wherever they want, and if they spend a year in the academy, they can sign the homegrown deal that gives them the roster benefits. Cool. The flip side of that is going to have to be MLS saying or loosening whatever their minimum requirements are on academy investment. Because if teams don't want to invest in the academy, they want to build their roster a different way, and now players in their market can leave, no questions asked, then they shouldn't have to invest at the same level as another team because players can leave. If they decide not to do that, then that's fine. I think we're past the point in the U.S. where we have to have the MLS teams do this because it's going to raise the overall level. I think that's been raised. And now if, let's say Chicago, because at one point, and this might change with the new ownership and new way of thinking with Chicago, but at one point there were rumblings that the Fire didn't want to field a U19 academy team. They had no interest in it. Cool, don't. Like, maybe have a requirement where you have to have the U12s through the U15s, and that's it. I don't know. I don't know what that is. I'm not in that world on a regular basis, so I don't know where your cutoff would be. But if teams want to build a different way, let them build a different way, but open up those territorial restrictions. I think it was part of the mandate that MLS said to teams, you have to have this academy team, this age group, this age group, this age group, this age group. And part of that was so top players from a market didn't get poached when MLS is telling these teams they have to do it that way. That's my guess. I don't know for sure, but I think that time has passed.
Sean, when he joined us this morning, wanted to know if we really discussed getting the replacement for Joseph and who that may be.
Who it could be. I mean, this is the thing, and this comes up every time an Atlanta United transfer saga starts. It could be 10 players you've heard of, and it could be 50 players you've never heard of. So I slow the roll on that part. I can do a list. I mean, if you want me to write that list of 10 players like MLS did, and we can go through it, and I can give you reasoning on why these 10 players would fit, they could still go out and sign somebody that you haven't heard of. Because that's what they do. The Worldwide Scouting Network, look, I can't follow every league everywhere. I think there's players that could fit, that are out there that make sense. I don't know the price tags. I don't know if a player like Ignacio Scocco at River would be available, if he would be interested in making the move. I don't know what his price tag would be. I don't know what the price tag from River would be, but would he fit? Yeah. 34-year-old, veteran experience, good goal scorer, isn't playing a ton at River right now. He can give you a good year. He's got chemistry with Pity Martinez due to past history. So would that player fit a profile? Sure. And River, if they win the league this weekend, if they win their match against Atletico Tucumán, then they win the league. They get an automatic spot in the Libertadores in 21. So the Copa de la Superliga doesn't really mean anything to them because they've already got their Libertadores spot. So would they maybe be more willing to let him go? They will have Libertadores matches to deal with, but you've got a deep enough roster up top. Would they be willing to let him go? Possibly. So that's a player that, I could see being a fit, but that's me looking at it from the outside. Price tag might be too high. Might not fit in the budget. Might not have any interest in making the move. So it's all speculation. It's all wild speculation right now. I think there are veteran players around the world that would fit and be a good 1 year, replacement for Joseph. There are players within the league that are either not seeing the field enough or could be just a player that you could make a big trade for. Danny Houston was another one that we've mentioned at different points because he played for Ajax. He played for Frank de Boer. He's a player that Frank would know. He's also a player that started for San Jose over the weekend. So you might not be able to get him. We can go through a whole bunch of names. It's honestly just pulling names out and then talking about names. I don't know how much value there is in that. I think the important thing is the profile of the player. And I lean more to the right fit being a veteran who's not going to need a big adjustment period, who is going to be able to hit the ground running, who's going to be able to play in big games, and a player that and he knows he's not coming here to be the long-term replacement. He's coming here for a very important year with a lot of trophies on the line for a big club, and he can contribute to that. But long-term, the striker for this team is Joseph Martinez. And if the player who comes here to play this year wants to stay, he's going to become a reserve player next season, most likely, because Joseph Martinez would be back. That's the kind of player I think you're looking for. There's a ton of different players who fit that profile at all different price points. And that's the hard part, is going out to determine which one fits the price, which one has the interest, which one is the right personality to fit, and then which one's actually available.
The commissioner of our fantasy league, jumping in on the question that was posed, which was worse, my fantasy league or the food takes? The commissioner says food takes. My lineup was okay, but just okay this week.
Okay is better than your food takes.
Commissioner. Yeah. Power rankings came out from MLS Soccer.
Okay.
And I was buzzing through it quickly.
Oh, sounds like something that has buzzed you on this. What do you have?
Yeah.
Oh, boy. And he's all fired up.
It's at the bottom.
Okay.
26th is FC Cincinnati.
Yeah.
25th is Vancouver.
Yeah.
24th is Nashville.
Yeah.
24th out of 26th?
Well, let's look at the rankings. Let's start from the top. It's a little bit easier to go that way. So, okay. Seattle, number 1. I don't. No, I disagree. Seattle's not number 1. They're not. They got knocked out of CONCACAF. And that factors into it. I know this is the MLS Power Rankings, but they gave up 4 goals to Olympia. They had to fight back to beat Chicago. No, they're not number 1. LAFC's number 1 because of what they did against Leon in the second leg and winning 1-0, getting a clean sheet against Miami at home a few days later. LA's number 1. Atlanta's number 3. I'm trying to think if I would put Atlanta ahead of Seattle. I probably would because they handled Motagua and Seattle couldn't handle Olympia. Yeah. So Atlanta number 2, Seattle number 3, NYC is number 4. They would have been higher, but they do get that early red card. They do take a loss in week 1. Okay, number 4 for them. That's fine. So I've got Seattle 3, Atlanta 2. Minnesota's 5 according to MLS. Minnesota should be ahead of NYC because of their strong performance in Portland. I'm putting them 4. Okay. Toronto 6. I don't put them at 6. They're lower down. Dallas is 7. Dallas is ahead of Toronto. I don't think that Dallas is not ahead of NYC, but Dallas is ahead of Toronto. Galaxy are 8.
On the draw with Houston?
Galaxy are not number 8. I don't understand that. Columbus is 9. Columbus should be ahead of LA, not ahead of Dallas.
Yeah.
Colorado's 10. Colorado should be ahead of Columbus. They should be ahead of LA. They should be ahead of Dallas. Colorado should be like 6 or 7 because of how they finished last season and going out and winning on the road. Colorado should not be 10. Colorado should be like 6. That's disrespect for the Colorado Rapids. Philadelphia, number 11. Red Bulls 12, Sporting 13. I'd go Sporting higher than the 3 of those. Philly would be the bottom of the 3 of those for me.
So Philly at 13.
Yes. Portland at 14. No. Portland's further down. New England at 15. They lost in Montreal. They didn't lose at home like Portland did. New England's ahead of Portland. New England finished a lot better last season, too, so they come in a little bit better. So New England's ahead of Portland. RSL's 16. They went out and got a point on the road. They were number 3 last year in the West. They should be ahead of Portland as well. Montreal's 17, and this is incredible disrespect for all that is good in the world of poutine, because Montreal got through Saprissa, and they got a win in their first match. There is no way at all they should be number 17. That is incredible disrespect for Thierry Henry and for poutine and all the great things in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. Montreal should be like in the top 10. That's incredible disrespect. I'm offended for Montreal. I am incredibly offended by this. I mean, what else do they have to do to get out of the bottom half? Come on.
For real.
DC's 18. Probably lower. San Jose 19. Slightly higher. I mean, they did get a draw at home, and they came back to do it. DC lost at home. So I'll go San Jose edging up a little bit higher. Houston 20. They got a draw at home. They were missing players. I'll put them ahead of DC. Miami 21. It was good on the road. Would I put Miami ahead of DC based off of week 1? I'm tempted.
I would.
Orlando, draw at home, no goals at home, 22. They didn't lose at home. So, man, Orlando could be ahead of DC. DC should be much further down. Chicago, lost on the road, but had the lead for a good while. 23 for them feels pretty low. Nashville 24, and see, this is where I'm getting. How much higher can they go? It's not to say they played bad. It's not to say they were bad at all. But who are you going to bump them ahead of? Who's going to fall below Nashville?
Orlando.
Orlando got a point. They got a point against the number 3 team in the West from last year. What are you complaining about?
You can kick a ball around for 90 minutes, not do anything, and still get a point. I watched the tail end of that match, and it was not.
Who's
took
higher in
television
the standings?
back 10 years.
Who's higher in the standings?
Orlando, because you got a point.
Yeah, they got a point at home. Nashville lost at home. You can't justify it. Orlando didn't have their top striker either. And it didn't have Nani. So they got a point without all of their top talent.
So then are they higher than DC?
Yeah. DC should be one that's low. That's much lower than this. I'll put Nashville ahead of DC based off week 1.
There you go. I'll agree with you there. Having watched both matches, I'd go Nashville ahead of DC.
Yeah. DC was awful in the final 30 minutes. Nashville was not awful in the final 30 minutes. So they might move up one spot.
And Power Rankings had them next to last week.
Because nobody's respected the way Nashville's built their roster. They didn't build it with a whole bunch of flash. They built it to be very, very solid and build from there. And they showed that in week 1. So, no, I get it. I disagree. I don't know why you would have had Vancouver ahead of Nashville. Just look at the rosters. I'm sorry. And they finally fixed that. But, no, nobody's respected the way Nashville's built because it hasn't been sexy. That's why Miami is ranked coming into the season at 19, and Nashville was ranked 25. The better roster's Nashville. I'm sorry. Nobody wants to admit that, but it's the case. The back line's better, the holding midfield's better. Like I've said all offseason, Miami has a higher ceiling because we expect them to spend crazy money on a number 9. And they spent big money on Rodolfo Pizarro. Pizarro's a better player than anybody Nashville has. But back 4, holding midfield, spine of the team, Nashville is stronger than Miami. They are. They should have been ranked higher. But after week 1, do you put Nashville with a 2-1 loss at home to Atlanta, who was a semifinalist last year and won trophies last year in all competitions? Do you put Nashville's 2-1 home loss higher than Miami's 1-0 loss on the road in LA? I don't think you do.
Yeah.
I don't think you do in terms of a power ranking. But DC should not be 18 ahead of San Jose, Houston, Miami, Orlando, Chicago, or Nashville. Because they lost at home. They looked awful in the final 30 minutes. And you lost at home. Flat out. You can't be ranked that high if you lose that game at home after having a 1-0 lead.
So then, yeah, Nashville moves up 1, and DC would be 24, Vancouver 25.
Because Vancouver's a whole other level of bad.
Yeah.
I'd actually put Cincinnati ahead of Vancouver.
Oh,
Vancouver
yeah,
would be at the bottom for me.
Yeah, because of how FC Cincinnati didn't pack it in after the big lead from Red Bulls.
It's a 3-2 loss on the road versus a 3-1 loss at home.
Yeah. Okay, so there we go. I feel better now.
Okay. I'm glad to help.
James McClatchy, given what has happened, are there any regrets about Tito getting away?
No, because you can't know what's going to happen. Tito wanted to guarantee playing time, and he's playing in the Copa Libertadores right now. So, I mean, Tito got what he wanted and needed for his career. Didn't know Joseph Martinez would go down. Couldn't plan on that. So you can't think of it that way. He wanted to go. You facilitated the move that the player wanted. Done. That's how you have to deal. You can't predict the future.
Then Shiva admits she joined late today, but just wanted to pop in and say the atmosphere at the Benz is going to be so 5-0's electric this weekend. Only tickets available are resale.
Yep.
And the stadium looks full. Joseph's not there. 17s will fill the spot this week. His spot this weekend.
I hope it is as loud as possible, and I hope that all that noise carries this team a little bit, because you're going to see a team early on that's going to play like they're looking for somebody, because they will be. They'll be looking for number 7. I mean, you get so used to playing with a player that has that kind of presence on the pitch, and when they're not there, it shows. It's noticeable, and it takes a little bit of time for the players on the field to adjust, because you play through instinct in a lot of ways, and when you get into that phase where you're playing, you're building, you're in the field, you're in the moment, and you play a pass expecting to see Joseph streaking onto it, and he's not there, that takes a little bit of time. And there's going to be moments like that. And that's where, this fan base and these supporters on Saturday have to continue to get louder and louder and carry this team through some of those hard moments, because you're going to have them. You will absolutely have them. And the louder this fan base can be and the more support they can show to this team, these are the moments where they really need it. These are the moments where I know it's really easy, and I know it's a thing that happens here maybe more than other places, especially more than in some Latin countries, where there's a bad pass. I'll get frustrated, and I'll yell and get mad, or even start to boo if there's a few bad passes. This is the kind of match where the reaction to lift the team when mistakes are made is going to be really important. It's going to be critical. And you know how hard it is. You know the adjustment this team's going to have to go through. They've never looked at a stretch like this that's coming up playing without Joseph Martinez ever in their history. Ever. You've had some injuries. You've had some absences that you knew were going to happen, international duty, whatever. You've never had 33 games plus CONCACAF plus Open Cup that you're looking at and you're not expecting to see Joseph on the field. It's going to take this team some time to adjust. You have to support them through that to help them get through it. And you have to support, whether it's Adam John, whether it's Pity Martinez, in that role. They're going to be figuring it out on the fly. This team's going to be figuring it out on the fly. Those moments of just sustained support and roaring noise are going to be critical.
And so it's going to be fun this weekend, but there's the call to all the 17.
No, I hope it's going to be fun because look, I get the trepidation. I understand it. I understand going into this game with nerves. Yes, everybody has it. You don't know what it's going to look like because we've never been here before. But this is where you have to look at how I think the effect a loud, supportive environment can have on a team. That's why it's supporters. This team needs that support right now to get through this moment. So it's going to be critical. I hope it's fun. I hope that people understand that this is going to be a work in progress. I hope that people understand there's not going to be answers in 90 minutes on Saturday. It's going to be a process, and it's probably going to be something that's going to be constantly evolving all season long. So you know what? I honestly don't even want it to be fun on Saturday. I want it to feel supportive. I want it to feel at the end that everyone is tired, because that's the kind of night you're looking at with this match on Saturday. It should be draining. You should feel like you played on the field at the end of it, because that's what this team needs in this one, and they need that while they figure this out and get things back in place without their attacking leader. There's an absence there that has to be filled. It's not going to be filled completely on the field, on the pitch this weekend, because it can't be that fast. But it can be helped to be filled. That absence can be filled by the support from the 17s in a big way. So it's not fun on Saturday. It's not a job either, but it's going to feel closer to that, because that support is really needed in this one. And I think it'll be critical to helping this team get to the result that they need.
No doubt. And it's first home match of the season, and I know that there's always a large expectation from the 17s about what Land United can do in any season. But this one, it's different, and it's I'm going to drop pretty much every coaching cliche known to mankind here, but a step at a time. It's a game at a time, and it's just taking it as it happens, just game at a time. Just take this first step and enjoy it, but be there for the team all match long. And to your point about being exhausted, yeah, I mean, if you're there and you're right there with them for that entire 90 minutes, you will be exhausted, and it will be, that all of that energy that will be given by the 17s. As I said, I'm looking forward to it.
I'm looking forward to it because I want to see how this starts to get worked out.
Yeah,
I want to see what options Frank DeBoer dials up. Is it Adam John as you're preparing for a match at the Estadio Azteca where you're going to be under a ton of pressure and you're probably going to have to concede possession a good bit? Is it going to be Pity Martinez and double down on we have talented players and we're going to play through our talent and have them combine and figure this out? We're going to figure it out through talent. Could go either way. And I'm excited to see what this looks like. It's going to be stressful. It's going to be stressful early on. It's just that's where you're at. Anytime you lose a player like Joseph Martinez, it's not easy. So this is going to be a big one, I think, to set the tone for what 2020 can be for Atlanta and Atlanta United.
Yep. Anything else on your mind before we go?
Nope, that'll do it. We got stoppage time later today. Facebook.com/929thegame, 2 o'clock. Join myself, join Mike Conti, join Jimmy Vance for that. We'll be taking questions. We'll go through some of the variations on the whiteboard of the false 9 look in different shapes, the Adam John as a number 9 look in different shapes, and what kind of options Atlanta United has. I think the whiteboard will get a workout today. I'll also be on 92.9 The Game at 1:20 with the midday show. Andy Bunker, Randy McMichael. I'll stick around for the AMA. So lots of soccer talk later today on 92.9 The Game. And that's only going to continue, folks. There's a lot of stuff coming up on the radio station all year long. That was already going to happen. It's going to continue to happen. Nothing has changed in the way that this team's going to get covered and talked about. I can honestly see a scenario where this year, because there's going to be so much to talk about, there's going to be even more content, not just with us, but with everybody who covers this team, because there's so many storylines. It's not the stories that you wanted to tell. It's not the discussions that you wanted to have. You wanted to talk about Joseph Martinez getting his 100th goal with the club this year. You wanted to get, Joseph Martinez winning a Golden Boot, winning an MVP, carrying this team to all the glory. Well, now it's going to be a different story, and I think there's going to be a ton to talk about in that realm. And it's not just us, but I know we have a lot, so get ready for it. It starts this afternoon, 1:20 on radio, 2 o'clock on stoppage time, facebook.com/929thegame. And get ready for Friday, the run-up, the Brew House. You have a chance to win tickets to Atlanta and Cincinnati. If you missed out on tickets, and looks like it's just random resales that are available now, you can come to the Brew House and win tickets. John and Kelly will be hosting. I'll be on the show. Hopefully some more special guests as well. But we'll see you all Friday at the Brew House. We'll talk to y'all tomorrow morning on SDH. Mucho plata, y'all.
Mucho plata.